All right, guys, welcome to the brand new show, the Joe Khamou Show. I'm going to keep these rolling for you, trying to get inspiring guests, guys and gals in the sports space, ideally, or just anything that interests me. The next guest here, I came across his TikTok. I was fascinated by it because I love talking fighting, love talking martial arts. Marcus Kowal, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to have you on. I'm ready to talk fighting, hear your story. You're an author, you're a martial artist, you're an entrepreneur. I'm really excited to dive in, talk fighting, talk Krav Maga, because I had a lot of MMA guys on. Your Krav Maga specifically. What's your story? Because I really want someone to stick up for the Krav Maga community. Because I had Terrence McKinney, top UFC fighter, on. He says, MMA would smash Krav Maga. I had Beneil Dariush, top 5 lightweight, on. He said they'd smash. I had another martial artist. Everyone's saying Krav Maga is nothing compared to MMA. So I want to debate all this, debunk all this, and have a great talk, man.
Yeah, that's good. And this is what I do on TikTok now and Instagram and YouTube is exactly that, like talking about what works in real life and what doesn't. And understanding what Binal, I know him. It was terrible to see his fight over the weekend.
Yeah, that was
After we
hard.
trained
That,
together. Rafael Cordero, Master Rafael Cordero was my coach. We trained together a lot, and to see that was vicious. But um, and I would be happy to speak to him about it and any MMA fight. And I've been talking to top UFC fighters, training partners, and I always ask them, for what? If it's you versus someone else, of course you're gonna win. This is what you do for a living. You
yeah,
spend, 3 to 4 hours a day. If you couldn't, that would be bad. But this is a good example. The very first time I went and sparred with someone from Krav Maga, I came from Sweden, where I'm from originally. Talk about that later on. But I came to LA, landed in LA, went straight from the airport to Krav Maga Worldwide to spar. And I sparred with this guy who was not my level of a fighter. But because I'm so sports specific, I went in the sparring and he kicked me in the groin so damn hard. I doubled over from it, right? And
right.
I would have, you don't even think about it in a street fight because that's not what you do in kickboxing. Um, Once I got up, I head kicked him, but I would have lost to a fighter that was not my level of a fighter. But it's also important to understand, like, what is the purpose of Krav Maga? Krav Maga is not about fighting; it's self-defense, but it's realistic self-defense, which includes fighting back. But your goal is only to get away. That's your ultimate goal. So no, you can't go in and beat an MMA fighter, but maybe I can fight you off long enough until I can put myself at safety or get to that rock over there. And there's plenty of videos. There's one specifically with a Brazilian MMA fighter. I can't remember his name. He was in the UFC, if I don't remember wrong. They started
Right.
off fighting. Um, he was completely in the wrong. He started off by slapping a girl. But her boyfriend comes in. They start fighting inside of the convenience store at this gas station. Inside of the gas station, they're doing well because it's confined space. So him and his friend, who's also clearly a trained MMA fighter, they're doing well. But then somehow it cuts to outside of the gas station, and now they're surrounded by people and they get hit with a pipe from the back in the head. One of them, the friend I know, was in a coma for a while, but both of them got beat up badly. And that's also understanding strategy in a self defense situation. Like, where are you? Where are you in space? In a cage, you never have to worry about that. You can do things for entertainment because it's also entertainment, right?
Right.
Because you can always rely on that the referee is going to stop the fight in time, except the co-main and main event of last weekend's UFC. But the risk versus reward is on a different level, and I think it was Anthony Johnson who
Right.
caught an intruder in his house, the light heavyweight UFC fighter, and he said
Right.
it
Right.
too. He said, "I've never been so scared in my life," and I have fought professionally kickboxing, I fought professional mixed martial arts, and because I'm not a big guy, and I would stand up for what I would think is right, I got into a lot of street fights growing up. Um, and I can tell you the level of adrenaline is different when it comes to a street situation. So I can speak on this all day long, but the purpose is two completely different things. MMA fighters can learn for self-defense, and obviously, if you're a Krav Maga practitioner training 3 times a week, don't mouth off to MMA fighters thinking that you're going to stand a chance.
So what do you focus on? What are you the main, like, if you were to pick your number one ability, are you a Taekwondo guy, Krav Maga specifically, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? What is your strength? What is the main focus for you? Krav Maga, right?
Yeah, I'm a kickboxer. I
Okay.
was a kickboxer first. I fought kickboxing professionally first, and boxer, so striker. overall. I started MMA very late, and just because I love combat. But kickboxer, which goes hand in hand with self defense. I love Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I compete in as a big part of mixed martial arts, and I know some amazing people in jiu-jitsu that would do great, but truthfully, and you train so you'll know this,
Yeah.
for a female of 120 pounds to go to the ground and try to armbar a guy who's 200 pounds in a street self-defense situation, like, can I
Not
swear on
practical.
this show?
Yeah, 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 sure.
Get the fuck out of here. Like, it's not going to happen
Not
unless
practical.
if you like 10 years, 15 years, you're a black belt, you're very strong and athletic as well. Like jiu-jitsu and MMA, which is funny because, or ironic, they started from the same roots, right? And they've separated. They're two separate sports. So to put someone in an armbar without that person punching you is very different from when they're on top of you and throwing punches at you, and the weight difference and so forth. So jiu-jitsu is great. I love jiu-jitsu. For law enforcement, jiu-jitsu is great because
Right.
they have to control. For lifestyle, jujitsu is great, but for self defense, especially for women, no, Krav Maga is much better. And obviously, the more you know, the better off you are going to be. And the I am a martial artist, is what I am. And but my focus now, my passion is to teach people to be safe in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like with being anybody being underweight, especially a woman 120 and I'm like over 200, you pick up, you slam the person. Like I used to, like we talked about this before the show. Like I would pick up people and slam them. All these guys that have finesse jujitsu, you pick them up, you slam them. They can't tap me out because I'm just stronger. So like there is no perfect martial arts, but I guess it's better doing it than not doing it. Is the way I look at it, right? It's kind of like belt and
Absolutely.
suspenders. It's like you have it in your arsenal, but it may or may not help. So, what is like, there's no perfect martial arts. Like, if I'm in the street and I want to just, I'm walking with my family, I go out, or I just want to just protect myself, be the most aware of scenario situations, dismantling guns and knives and stuff. I would think Krav Maga is the most practical for life saving strategies, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely, because that's his only purpose. Of course, when you do something that is its main purpose, that's what's going to be the best. So if you can be you see all the time UFC champions that go in and go with the top level jiu-jitsu guys and they get played with in jiu-jitsu because
Right.
that's what jiu-jitsu player does. But if it was a fight, it would be completely different. And of course, if it's one-on-one, and that's what people often forget, and I often get asked, why do I do both Krav Maga and mixed martial arts? For
Yeah.
two different reasons. One is a sport that I enjoy, um, and that is also practical and would work, of course, in a self defense situation. But Krav Maga is specifically for self defense. Most people don't have, 2 to 3 hours to spend, or 4 to 5 hours to spend a day on mixed martial arts. They want to learn something that's fast, that's easy, that's effective. Um, and that's what Krav Maga was for. It was developed for that. It was developed for the Israeli military, and it was developed to to give people that didn't have much time to practice some basic skills. And to think that the soldiers of Israel weren't given, and it's also now the preferred self defense system for law enforcement in the United States as well. To think that they would pick something that wouldn't be effective is crazy.
Okay.
And but you also get the other end of that is when you get people from the military from Israel that learn Krav Maga, who go, "Oh, I'm good at hand to hand combat." No, you're not, because your job is to go to a higher power. So yeah, it goes both ways.
The thing about a fight, it's so unpredictable, and that's what I hate about it. So I can train because I'm a strong guy, hit the bag every day. I'm tough. I could do push-ups. I'm physically strong. I've trained martial arts in the past. But what sucks about fighting, and this is what I hate, is that if I get into a scuffle with a guy, all he's got to do is pull a knife out and just slice my throat, whatever. And that's the thing. Like I don't, as much all this training I'm doing, it's like almost like I don't want to say what's the point, right? But if it's a scuffle and he gets dirty, it's like, man, like I couldn't have seen that because this is a new battle. I'm in a grocery store or something. He jumps me. It's like, whoa, like I didn't expect that, Like this is the scary thing about it. It's like, how do you, I don't know, man. Like, are we all, because I'm always kind of aware. Like, I remember when I was young, my cousin, he took Okinawa Goju and all this stuff. So he was all into the Sikudachi stance and all this. He was like, oh, always bend your knees when you're standing because some guy's going to come in and like hyperextend your knees. So if you have a little bit of a bend, you'll be fine. But I don't want to live in paranoia. So, like, what do we
Yeah.
do? Like, what's the perfect way to, like, I mean, it's like, I don't know. How do you protect yourself, man? Like, what's the best way to kind of be? Or should I have pepper spray on me all the time? Like, and this goes for all women too. Like, my wife walks around. Like, you see now all these videos with these guys when women are like pumping their gas, in the car, and they come in, they steal from their car, and like they're coming to the grocery store, they're marking their cars, and like, what's kind of like, how should we always be aware? What do we do? It's a loaded
Yes.
question. It's a loaded question. I know.
But that's the truth, right? How do you prepare for the unpreparable?
Yeah.
Which is you train, and that's what you learn in the military. Is constantly focus on what can happen. If you look at a pilot, right, learning how to fly a plane, I don't want to disrespect pilots, but I know that flying the plane doesn't take that long to learn. 90% of the time is focused on what happens when things go wrong. And a lot of times, and you said it, and that's a common misconception, that you walk around with paranoia. That's not what it should be. But the more aware you are of what can happen, the more you can actually lower that fight flight response, because you can go, okay, I know where the exits are. Like, I know what my eyes are scanning for. And as soon as that red flag happens, I will respond to it correctly. Whereas if you constantly walk around, like you said, with paranoid, then you won't get that red flag because you're constantly in that response state. So there's a great book called The Gift of Fear, which I highly recommend, and especially for anyone to understand how fear can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And fear is your best friend, and it's been with us through evolution, and it's in any animal, right? Which is survival. And when you get into a situation where your survival is dependent on the, your ability to fight back, then your level of fear is going to be the highest it will ever be, and that's called your ASR, your acute stress response. That's
Right.
where your adrenaline dump, which is what you get when you. And that's how actually I started the TikTok and the YouTube, was because I saw these videos which were absolute garbage that would never
Bullshito.
work. Yeah,
Bullshito.
bullshit. Exactly. And especially that clown from Detroit with his uniform and headpiece, right? So that's why I started it. And you see these videos made by people who have never been in a fight.
Right.
Because if you had been in a fight, you would have known that, like in the car seat, and you're gonna grab the seatbelt, and you're gonna
Yes.
do this, you're gonna put, like, you have never experienced true fear and true violence. And you've watched a movie. And that's the biggest problem with people, is that, when you hear, unfortunately, a lot of times, well meant self-defense tips, but they would never work. Like kicking someone in the shin bone is not going to work. Stomping someone on the foot, even with a high heel, is not going to work. Why? Because
No.
that person is also going to have adrenaline pumping. I've been foot stomped in fights many times. Is it comfortable? No. Is it going to stop me from fighting? Absolutely not. So understanding that, and then very common when it comes to women's self-defense, is just like, oh, just give them what they want, give them your money, give them your phone. Great, if that's what they want. What if they want you or your
Yeah.
children, right? Now, what are you going to do? Like, of course, giving up your materialistic things, if that's what they want, you have a 90% chance of survival. But if they want to take you to a secondary location, you have reversed chances of survival. You have 10% chance of survival.
Okay, in all
So,
serious sorry, that's what I like about
yeah,
you so much. You're real, you're genuine. There's a lot of, like I said, bullshito out there. You see Steven Seagal out there, people flying off his body. The guy's like 500 pounds now. He's like, I'm like, come on, man. Like, he touches them and they fall. Like, let's be realistic. That's what I like about you. You're really authentic. So, sorry to interrupt there, but I want to ask you. So let's because I want to make this like a how-to video for, specifically women. Let's say even for certain parts of this video that to help them. What is it? Because my wife's like, I don't know, 115 pounds, small. She's never been in a fight. What do I do to kind of arm her? And again, you hear people, Joe Rogan talking, he has like military people on. They're like, if the women trains, but like, how much training do they need? What's the like pepper spray? What's the kind of like a how to on how to really defend yourself if you don't really train? Should you be aware? First of all, you should be just checking your back seat, right? Instead of just worried about someone grabbing. Check your back seat first. Isn't it like prepare and be aware before anything and try to avoid situations? That's number one, right?
yeah, absolutely. Avoiding it. I just had a girl that had on, she was a girl who sat in her car for 5 minutes before she realized someone was in her back seat.
Wow.
And so it does happen. And she has tinted windows. She talks about it because she filmed the guy. She filmed him, but she was sitting on FaceTiming with a friend, not realizing that this guy was in the back seat the whole time. So because she wasn't driving, she was just sitting in the car. So, and I've done these videos on like, what to do in those situations. And so here's anytime I teach a self-defense seminar, the first thing I talk about are the three pillars that make up self-defense. The first one is mindset. Your willingness to fight for yourself. Your willingness to actually inflict pain on another human being. And we don't normally talk about that in society because we try to be good human beings. But we have to understand that not everyone are like us. We cannot be that naive. And in some situations, violence will be your only answer,
Right.
because a predator's only concern, you can't reason your way out of it, you can't bribe your way out of it, you can't. The only thing that that they will respond to is violence, the fear of something happening to them, just like a shark in the ocean. What does
Right.
a shark do normally? It circles and then it bumps. Why? Because it's concerned with its own safety. The most apex predator in the ocean since the dinosaurs is concerned with his own safety. So first and foremost, the willingness when need be and ability is number two, to inflict pain on another human being. So before even self-defense is mindset, and second of all, your ability to fight back. You have to learn to create force in a punch, in a kick, in a knee, in an elbow, with a headbutt. So you have to train. So to think that self-defense isn't going to work, that doesn't mean you have to work self-defense all the time. But
Right.
obviously, if you're like yourself, if you're more of an athlete, you are going to be a better or a harder victim because you can fight back. Um, and it makes you more confident too, which makes you less of a target potentially, because a lot of times they look for weak and easy
You're giving
targets.
yourself a
So that's
chance by training. That's what you do. You're giving yourself a better chance by being strong, being able to strike and doing all that. And that's why I like jujitsu, because it gives you that real life struggle. Like I went
yeah,
back, I've been trained for years. My friend asked me to go out there 6 months ago. And just it reminded me of being in that adrenaline pumping survival type mode.
yeah,
I like the struggle, the feeling you got. And having that ability, if you get into a scuffle, it's like I've been here before. And that's very important.
yeah. It's very exactly. I've been here before. And not to, because we talk a lot about fight or flight, but there's four stages actually. It's but the most important stage that people don't realize that they start off in and will stay in is freeze. You go
Yeah.
freeze, flight, fight. And our job with self-defense training, a few hours will at least get you enough training to go from freeze to fight as quickly as possible, because that's also one of the main differences between MMA and self-defense. I know who I'm fighting. I know where I'm fighting. I know what weight we're fighting at, and the fight starts when the referee says fight.
Yeah.
Most self-defense situations are either surprise attacks or they escalate very quickly.
So what I see is I see a lot of reels now, a lot of TikToks, a lot of Instagrams of people getting sucker punched. That's the problem I have, and I'm afraid that I would fall into that, right? If you're in a situation where you are kind of talking to somebody and like, are you kind of aware that you could get sucker punched, and are you shifting your body in a position to be prepared for that? Are you constantly bracing for a potential sucker punch? Because that's what sucks. No matter how tough you are, and I had the power slap champion on. I said that's what I don't like about power slap is that no matter how tough you are, you got to take it. And I don't like the fact that you just take it and you don't have a fair fight. There's no such fair fight. Let's put up our dukes and let's go at it in the back. It doesn't happen like that all the time. It's just 90% of the time plus. It's not like that, right?
And that's what's important to remember, that people that fight in the streets are not fighters. As fighters, we want to test ourselves. We want to fight someone, that
Yeah.
we think that we are better than, and they think they're better than us. Well, let's find out, right? In a sports setting. A lot of times I get asked when it's like, "Oh, how do you get yourself to hate your opponent?" I'm like, I don't hate my opponent. I don't even dislike my opponent. It's not about him. It's about me. But when it comes to a self-defense situation, I don't know anything about this person. Like you said before, I don't know if they have a knife in their pocket. You always, once I'm in that state, I think worst case scenario. You're
Right.
reaching for your pocket, I will be the first to strike. If I see you start, but yes, I will get into what's called a modified fight stance, where I can speak with my hands up, especially in the United States for some reason. It's this thing about puffing your chest up, bringing your chin up. It's like, what? And
Yeah.
I have this thing where they almost look like they're whispering in each other's ears. And I'm like, where's this from? And I'm a nerd, by the way. So I will like start looking at like, where does that come from? Why
Isn't
do
that
men do
primal?
that?
Isn't that like primal? You're kind of like a peacock.
Yes,
You're kind of like
yes.
Alpha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And you see dogs right before they start fighting, they stand in that standoff position, and like who strikes first, get out of that. That's the primal. You want to be able to access that level of violence, but not with the emotional attachment, right? That's where you have to, and that's what people don't understand. There's two things, especially men. Men, right, think that there's two things that every man knows how to do. He can drive a car and he can fight. No matter if he has
Yeah.
training or not, he's always good at that. And so to think that you understand combat, hand to hand combat without training is ridiculous. Like that's where people don't understand. So yes, you will not get close to me. If you try to get too close, I will draw a distance between us with my hands. I have the element of surprise to my advantage for the most part because I'm 5'7", 150 pounds.
Wow, I
Um,
didn't know that. I thought you're a bigger guy, smaller.
yeah,
Small
yeah, yeah.
compact.
I'm
Okay.
not. That's why I've gotten into a lot of situations because I will stand up for what's right. I will stand up for myself, but I look like an easy target to someone. And this, so if you look at criminals or people fighting in the streets that want to have a street fight, they want to win. They're
Yeah.
scared of getting hurt, right? So they want an easy target. A criminal wants the person to give them what they want. They don't want to fight. They're not looking for someone to fight back. That's why a little goes a long way in a street situation when you're trying to get out of a situation. It's the same as mixed martial arts, like jujitsu, for example. If I'm fighting a guy who's a high level black belt in jujitsu, my job is to keep that fight standing. And if we go to the ground, it only becomes he can only take advantage of his grappling if I'm doing grappling back. If I'm fighting to get back to my feet, it's a lot harder for him to play jujitsu because I'm not playing back. I'm trying to get back to my feet. So for self-defense, we want to keep fights on our feet. We want to be mobile. We want to be able to try to get out of the situation. And again, completely different concept to mixed martial arts or any type of organized combat.
Yeah, I don't wanna make fun of people, but a majority of people, 90% of dudes can't fight. I watch these
Oh,
videos and I'm like, "Dude, I would smoke them." Like, they come out and it's just like, it's wild haymakers or they're completely uncoordinated, they've got no ground game, and I'm just like, and you see all these people in the road rage incidents where the guy comes out of the car, it's even an older dude, he goes up to the other guy, and they don't know what they're doing. They just kinda throw a punch here and there, one guy gets knocked out. A lot of people, and I don't wanna, say, like, to be over arrogant here, but a lot of people, unless I ran into like someone like you or a UFC fighter, I for the majority of the part, I feel pretty confident. But a majority of people can't say that because they haven't put in the time on the mat and trained. But again, for the most part, aside from a weapon, I'm not really concerned. But people, for the majority of people, they should be concerned, I would think, because if they got into a fight, at least learn how to block or do something, right? But a majority of the people, do you agree that like they don't know how to fight? Like I would say 95%, right? Plus.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that we live in a society where, for the most part, most people have never been in a true physical
No.
altercation, which is great. But we have to remember that violence and aggression and social, evil people unfortunately exist. And and so, and this is where I when I talk to people personally, I live this, I breathe this, I love martial arts, right? This is what I do. This is what I dedicated my life to. But I know that's not for everyone, but I always recommend people find martial arts. You'll find everything in martial arts. You'll find community, connection, physical movement, a purpose. You're getting comfortable failing because you fail every training session. So find a martial arts gym. But even if you're not interested, what's your life worth to you to invest 5 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours, 10 hours of self-defense training is quite a lot. 5 hours is what I would say a bare minimum that will get you a fair amount of decent knowledge. And again, no, you're not going to be an MMA fighter, but that's also not your purpose. Your purpose is getting out of a situation, being comfortable enough in your ability to
Right.
at least withstand some violence so that you can get out of there. That's
Yeah.
it.
I want to give you a couple scenarios here. Again, first of all, let's start off with the woman. So a woman comes out of a grocery store. Again? How does she defend herself? So should she have pepper spray on her? What are some self defense things? Should she obviously said maybe training 5 hours a week? Let's say she get some kickboxing. So a woman, let's say 120 pounds. What does she do to kind of help herself prepare for a kind of a worst case scenario if somebody tries to mug her or take her away or steal her car or something like that or jump in her car? What should she be doing? A couple of tips for women out there listening. What should we do to prepare for the worst case scenario?
Um, yeah, pepper spray. Pepper spray is okay. Here's the thing. Most of the time, when it comes to attacks, it escalates so quickly, or it's a surprise attack, so you don't even have time to go for that pepper spray. You don't have time to get into
Right.
your purse. But the truth is, when you have that level of prime paralyzation of fear, you're not even gonna think of reaching for your
True.
pepper spray. It's gone. It's been proven. They've done it with guns, for people with guns in a room, and there's an active shooter come running in. None of them. I think it was one guy who had a little bit more training who actually reached for his gun. No one even reached for the gun. So to understand that we function differently under that means we have to stress train. Like you mentioned earlier, we have to put ourselves in some level of stress, because if we can't handle any level of stress, we're going to get paralyzed and we're not going to do anything. So some basic training of getting our heart rate up, because that's also stress, right? So
Yeah.
physical activity, and learning how to strike with power, learning some basic punches, because that is going to get you further than in the beginning than, say, the choke or this type of attack, but or that type of attack. And the second of all is learning how to separate yourself from someone else. You mentioned the grocery store. What do you normally get at the grocery store? A robber, potentially. If they want your materialistic things, give them up right away. Whatever they want, your car keys, your jewelry, everything can be replaced. If they want you to get into the trunk of that car, I would recommend you to do everything and anything and everything that you can to fight back, to not end up in that trunk, because your chances of survival are so low after that. So being able to be violent and loud, which also takes confidence. We've been raised in a society where
Right.
screaming and being loud is not accepted. To be able to raise your voice and draw attention is also something that especially a predator doesn't want. So women's biggest, 1 in 4 women will at some point be sexually assaulted, not necessarily a full-blown rape, but sexually assaulted. To know how to strike back, to not make allow yourself to be a victim. You mentioned this, coming out of the grocery store. That's what Ted Bundy would do. He would go to the grocery store and wait for people, pretend that he was on crutches, get needing help to get his grocery bags into his car.
Wow.
He had a cassette player with a baby crying, to get them to help him with this baby. We teach kids from a young age stranger danger. It's terrible, because it's usually not strangers that are the danger.
Mm.
Predators are sick but not stupid. They know what they're trying to do is not accepted by society, but they can act well, and they usually play off of people's kindness. So one, learn to trust your red flags, be aware of situations, right? And then, two is be willing and able to create inflict pain on another human being. You have to. And then three is to separate yourself. If you're being sexually assaulted, you need to separate yourself. If you're being abducted, they're going to try to drag you into a car. You need to learn to separate yourself. So, how to deal with bear hugs. I have an online self defense program at yourkravmaga.com. Do that. Go on there, get 10 hours of training, 5 hours of training. Do it together with your family, so that you all know some basic self-defense. And of course, the more the merrier. It might be the gateway into martial arts, and maybe you start enjoying it, and then you start doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and all of it, which is the whole point.
Yeah, I can't express how important it is. If I can help one person or two people just to try to get the edge, I want to do that. I think it's so important. Again, I grew up taking martial arts my whole life. I can't express how important it is. If you have young kids, I have two young kids. What's the best thing to get them into? Is it jujitsu, tech? I don't know. I just feel, again, maybe I'm wrong. It was important for me with katas. Like, I like katas. They're foundational. They're good for strength. They're good for being loud, getting that confidence we just talked about. But what type of martial arts should we get kids in to get them starting to protect themselves at a young age? Because it's important even for a kid to be loud, protect themselves, avoid danger. Is it just basic self-defense? Karate is a good way to start. Because I don't think there's anything else offered. There's jujitsu for kids as well. But what should children be into? Ages, let's say 4 to 10. What should we get them into, you think?
It's a great question. We have at Systems Training Center, my gym, we have a kids program. We start them at 4. Um, we tried a little younger, but it can be very, very difficult. But jiu-jitsu is great at that age, because it's a lot to do with movement. We teach our kids at Systems. We teach them both Muay Thai, Bang Muay Thai, and then with Jiu Jitsu, we're Checkmat affiliate, where we teach Jiu Jitsu and people kickboxing to the kids. Now, when people come to me and say, "What martial arts should I do?" and I think it's the same for kids as well. My question back to them is, what do you want the outcome to be? What are you looking for? Do you want to become more flexible, more agile? You want to have fun? Taekwondo is great for that. Do you want to learn self-defense? Well, then Krav Maga. Do you looking for something that's going to be more than just working out, like being part of a community and getting to test yourself? Then jiu-jitsu is great, right? So it all depends on what you want the outcome to be. So for kids, karate and taekwondo are great for what you mentioned, kata, when it comes to discipline and focus, which are two things that are life skills that we also offer. But a lot of times, if it's jiu-jitsu, it's just jiu-jitsu. If it's Muay Thai, it's just Muay Thai. But to give the kids life skills is very important. But if, as a parent, um, what does your child need? I think they need both. So the best of two worlds is some training with this, both focus and structure, right? So they get discipline and jujitsu, because for kids, most of the time that young, to be able to take someone down and control them is it, or to separate yourself, to get away. That's key, right? But also Krav Maga. There is Krav Maga for kids. We teach Krav Maga for kids. And again, what's good about it is it's simple, it's effective, and it gets the kids confident, true confidence. Because the only thing worse, and this is why I started the TikTok and the YouTube. The only thing worse than not knowing self defense is thinking that you know self defense. All
Right.
that bullshit out there and going walking around thinking you know how to defend yourself. And the time you'll find out, if I have a shitty MMA coach or jiu-jitsu coach or kickboxing coach, I go out, I fight, I lose 5 fights in a row, and I go, maybe it's time to look for a new coach, right? But in a self-defense situation, you will have one chance, and that can be the
Yeah.
difference between life and death. So again, I don't care if you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu or a world champion Muay Thai. Talking about world champion in Muay Thai, Alex Gong, I don't know if you know who that was, high
Yeah.
level world champion Muay Thai fighter who caught someone in the act of stealing his car. I think he was still wearing his gloves when he ran out. Got out to the driver's side of the car, and the guy shot him, right?
Wow.
So and killed him. And so to again, like you mentioned earlier, knives, guns, like things escalate so quickly. And just to know what to look for, the number one self-defense is to not have to fight in the first place, right? Trying to avoid situations. Don't get into road rage. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. Trust your red flags, right? If someone is acting weird, if they're wearing strange clothing, if they're looking at you and keep observing you, and here's like this is something I've done a lot, is killing the myths of women's self-defense. And one of them is don't make eye contact with them, because that's aggressive. Yes, if I'm a guy at a bar and you're a guy at the bar and I'm sitting staring at you, that's escalating, that's aggressive behavior. But for a woman, when it comes to a predator, absolutely make eye contact with them. That's a sign of confidence. I see you, I know where you are, I'm
Right.
gonna keep walking here. And people say, oh, don't turn around, like step to the side. Absolutely. If you feel like they might be a threat, turn around, face them, look at them. And if they're all going to be a threat, they are going to be a threat regardless. They're going to attack you anyways. And if they are, you want to face them. You don't want to give up your back. So there's a lot of self-defense myths which have been clearly made up by people that know nothing about fighting. So um, yeah, just learning to trust that we can. And I've worked with some amazing females. Um, I coached Wendy Rodriguez, who was she's or still is. She's not fighting anymore, but she was a four-time boxing world champion, 4'11", 105 pounds. I've seen her crack guys. She
Yeah.
punches hard. Now, again, everyone doesn't have 3 hours a day to spend on training, but you can learn how to create enough force to get someone to think twice about making you their potential target.
Another thing with women, I would say be careful with your routine, because anybody that's going to do this is probably premeditated, probably knows your routine. So that's another thing you got to watch is like maybe change your routine up once in a while. Try to look for people that are constantly showing up, different cars. Again, we're not aware. We're kind of busy in our lives, but it's always kind of who's following me, where am I going? If you're walking around the store, is this guy? I keep seeing this guy in the same aisle. I think women should just be a little more cognizant of their surroundings, just in general. I would think to prevent this.
Absolutely, because most people are good human beings, and maybe it's a guy who's checking you out and he wants to get your number, and maybe it's someone who you want to give you the number to. So again, if you're confident, you're able to differentiate between the two, right? Like right now, you're not a threat. Let's see how this continues to take form, right? How this is it escalating? Is he accepting my no? That's one thing that women really need to learn to do as well, is draw that invisible line and use your voice and your body language, like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you my number, no, I'm not interested, right? And when you're confident in yourself, you can do that politely. And if they don't respect those rules, then you have to potentially escalate as well. So absolutely, trusting our instincts is, we're so far removed from them because we live in the safest of times. As much as
Right.
what's going on around the world, we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers attacking us, right? So those alarm bells, those, we call them what you want, a sixth sense, or a gut feeling, whatever it is, like, we need to get back to being able to trust that. And that means being in touch with ourselves. There's no such thing as just body or mind. They always work together.
You're the fight expert, so I'm gonna put you in some scenarios here, some spots here, because I want to do these as short videos too, so people can come to them and view them. So one of
I
them is
like
road rage. Let's talk about road rage. How do you handle road rage? Assuming that I'm a good guy and for some reason I accidentally let's say accidentally cut somebody off, okay? And he's, let's say, behind me, he gets out of the car and I don't want to get out of the car. And let's just say I'm a woman, I'm 120 pounds, 5'5", and I can't fight, but I honked my horn, I got a little angry, got a little emotional. Now this guy, big guy, comes out. Maybe he comes out with a bat, maybe he comes out with a gun. We don't know. But you're in a car and maybe you can't move in front of you, but you're in the car and he's parked behind you, you're kind of pinned. The window, you got to keep your window closed. Like, what do you do in these? Again, road rage could be like on a highway or on a side street or on a road or a busy road. I mean, there's so many variables. That's a loaded question. But in general, I acted up, I hit the horn, he hit the horn. We're about to rock right now. Do I stay in the car? Do I call 911? Like, what do we do? Is it like, assuming I'm a person that can't fight, do I stay in the car? Like, what do I do in a road rage incident?
yeah,
It's
we
a tough
should try
question.
to avoid it. Sorry.
It's a tough question because there's so many scenarios, but I'm just curious, like, oh, in
There's so
general.
many scenarios and variables, but again, and if my brothers watch this, when I was younger with friends, I used to have road rage when I was younger, right? And I've learned over the years, like, the truth is, now it's a lot easier when you live in Los Angeles, and there's a lot more guns, right? Like, you never know what you're walking into. You don't know who the other person is. So to be able to differentiate that and fast enough, is it a bat, is it a gun? Like, it's two levels of escalations, right? Two, one, and but both of them are potentially fatal, right? Like, it's attack with a deadly weapon. So if I wouldn't get out of the car for sure. I would sit in the car. I would undo my seatbelt first and foremost.
Right.
Um, because if they come up on the driver's side and that's a gun in their hand, I don't have much room for I don't have a lot of time. I've tried to get out on the passenger side to get past. If it is a gun, I will always look in the mirror and try to differentiate. If it is a gun, I'm going to try to hit you with the car before you get up to the and here's where you go, okay, well, maybe they were just going to threaten you with it. I can't
Yeah.
take that risk. It's too late. What? Yeah, maybe they were, but that, even if it's just a 1% chance that he's going to use that gun, I have to act first. And I can justify that in a court of law. That's, coming out of a car with a gun. You're not supposed to, if you're not, unless you're in Texas, but that's a very aggressive behavior. I'm not going to wait to find out what your intent is.
What if they came out
Baseball bat,
well, just with a
huh?
fist or baseball bat? Assuming most commonly they probably come out with a fist or baseball bat. They run to your car and you don't want to fight. Do you just stay in the car?
The
Talk.
first thing I would do, yeah, oh yeah, I would stay in the car. I I might not stay in the. I put. I would get out of. I would recommend most people to stay in the car, um, because especially if you haven't trained. Why? Because you're safe in there, and it's also another layer of violence that person, again, if they're emotional as well, and they go, "I'm gonna hit you with this baseball bat." When you get up there, the first thing I would say is, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have honked my horn. I apologize." That's the best way,
Yeah.
right? If
But
that doesn't work,
egos and adrenaline probably won't make you say that though. It
no,
depends.
no. And
Yeah,
so personally, I would get out. Why? Because I'm much better equipped on my feet than I am sitting down in a car. If I
for
think
sure.
it's going to be a violent interaction, I will get out. If I don't know how to fight, I would stay there. I would open the window a little bit and say, "I'm really, really sorry." That's your best line of self defense. Um, if I don't know how to fight, I'd stay in the car and I would reverse and drive like a madman, to get out of there, to make him not want to get close to me. But again, we have
Right.
to understand levels of escalation. So, but if I got out, I would get into what's called the modified fight stance, and uh, perhaps apologize if I feel like you can normally see that in their body language and behavior. He's not listening anymore. He's past that stage. He's here to cause violence. I would attack the attacker.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's scary because a lot of people honk their horn. They play tough when they're in the car, but when it comes down, push comes to shove, they won't get out of the car. And that's a huge thing that happens a lot. I don't think in Texas you don't do that because people have mutual respect. They're all armed, and it doesn't happen as much. But up northeast Canada, stuff like that, where there isn't as many guns, man, people are just everybody's a tough guy over here. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's very interesting, the psychology behind road rage, of people like feeling like they have the lane, it's their
Yeah,
lane. And it's very, very interesting. And you're right, because you're in this confined space by yourself and you feel safe, like the middle ground between a keyboard warrior, who I get a lot of on, on self-defense videos, where you feel like you're safe in there. And I've been in that situation. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but when I was younger, and I remember one guy especially who was being really aggressive in his way of being. And I stopped. We ended up at a red light next to each other. And I got out of the car and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and it was this guy, like an office guy. And I'm like, I said to him, if you want to talk about this, pull over to the side. Let's talk about this. And he's like, no. And I could tell, like, I could tell that he realized that, oh, this is not what I expected, and this is not, I'm not prepared for this, right?
yeah,
And that's back to that self-defense, which is like, wait, to find out that you realize that, can you imagine like a victim of like a serial killer, right? And you're being
yeah.
choked, and that's the moment when you realize that, God, I don't know how to defend myself. I don't know how to get out of this, right? And that's your last thought, right? So again, those 5 hours, 10 hours, that whatever it is, to just get some basic self. Like, that's my goal with the online now, is to be able to provide realistic street self defense for everyone, whether you can afford, as long as you can have access to internet, you can learn some basic self defense.
I'll link it below here, all your links to access to your content. But also I want to talk. I just watched Equalizer. I don't know if you've seen Equalizer with Denzel.
Oh man, I don't remember it. I'm
Okay.
really bad at movies. I've trained some actors and I didn't even know who they were before.
Okay, he goes into like this pimp's house, or this pimp's guy's office, and there's the main guy at the desk, and there's like four other guys in this place, and they've all got guns. And he comes in confidently. He's an ex-military or whatever he is, and then as he's walking out, he visualizes the room. He remembers where everybody is, and like there's a gun there, there's a guy there, there's a guy there, there's a stone there, there's some I could throw, and then he puts a timer on. He goes 30 seconds, turns around, and he beats up and kills everybody in the room. I'm like, come on, man. It's like you gotta watch the Equalizer scene with Denzel. How realistic would it be to fight multiple guys? Like, it's just that would be impossible. Like, it's crazy. And even watch 24 with Jack Bauer. Like, some of the scenarios these guys are in, it's like there's no way, man. Like, you would survive some of the stuff. Like, so TV really embellishes people's fighting. I think people watch that and they get confident. I think there's some problems there with TV. Making you think.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, first and foremost, like, again, I was in the military, and even if you're really well trained, I've been in situations, self-defense situations, where we had to deal with someone with mental health who was being very aggressive. And it was two friends of mine that were there. They're not fighters, and they just happened to be there. And ultimately I didn't have to fight back. uh, the police showed up, and but I was ready to, and I was in front of him because he was attacking a woman with a child. So um, I was in front of him, and I told him afterwards, like, once I realized he had no weapons, like, my heart rate didn't even go up. Why? Because I knew I could control him. I realized he didn't have any weapons. I couldn't see. He wouldn't be able. Once I was close enough, he wasn't going to be able to get to those weapons. So yes, you start thinking along those concepts, and yes, a really well trained special operator is going to recognize, like, where are things in the room, like knowing where the emergency exit is. But to be able to stay that calm under high stress, because here's life or death as well, right? If we get scared, if we're nervous as MMA fighters when there's a referee in there, like, it's still a sport, it's brutal, but it's a sport. To think that you're gonna stay that calm, like, get out of it. It's never happened. It will never happen. It's
no,
not realistic. And also that thinking that, and this is very common, where people are like, oh, he was a Navy SEAL, so he's a great fighter. Oh, if he's a Navy SEAL, he's great. His mental strength is amazing. He's great with
Yeah.
weapons. He's really, but hand-to-hand combat, and for the most, he's going to be physical and he's going to be strong and aggressive. He's not going to give up. But this fight knowledge, hand-to-hand, close quarter combat is usually pretty limited. Nowadays, you get a lot of them to train jiu-jitsu and martial arts, but we have to remember what is the purpose of what you're learning. So this you're that good of a guy at taking weapons and working with weapons, but you're also that good at martial arts. Um, get out of here.
Okay, I got a couple more scenarios here for you. One of them is 3-on-1. So I remember before the internet was popular, there's this old video that came out where it was a skater guy, and they called him a skater punk, and he basically beat the crap out of three guys. They had him circled, one in front, two on the side. I think he took the guy in the middle out, beat him out aggressively, chased the other one. The other guy got scared or whatever, right? Beat him easily, and he was aggressive and hard. So 3-on-1, how do you win this fight? So one guy's in front of you, two guys are there. Let's say you're circled. You're in a scenario. Maybe you have maybe it's kind of an open area so you can run behind you. You're not necessarily against a wall. Maybe you are against a wall, whatever. How would you handle that? Would you go for the middle? Would you go right? Because I heard you go for the guy on the right and try to angle out and line them up. What's this kind of secret sauce on 3-on-1?
Yeah, and I've actually been in a situation with multiple attackers that some ended better. You at that point it's no longer about winning; it's about surviving.
Yeah.
Um, and it's never the way it is in movies. It's never like in a Bruce Lee movie where you stand in the middle, there's a circle, and they come one on one.
Yeah.
A fight one on one is havoc, but with several attackers or several people involved, it's so difficult. But yes, step number one is don't stay where you are. Don't stay in the middle. You have to line up and stack your attackers, as we call it, so that not all three of them can come at you at once. And it doesn't matter how good of a martial artist you are, as going back to that story with the Brazilian MMA fighter, if someone's coming up from behind you and hitting you, sucker punching you from behind or from the side, you're blindsiding you, you're not going to see it. And once you're out, you're out. There's no defense. So you have to stack them up. You have to remember your goal here is to stay mobile. That's why another reason we don't want to go to the ground. I've been in a situation like that where we got jumped, actually, me and a professional MMA fighter, black belt in jiu-jitsu, and we got jumped. And people heard this afterwards and they're like, "Oh, you guys must have killed them." And I'm like, we weren't expecting it. We weren't ready. And I got sucker punched, he got sucker punched. But the difference was I got taken down and then I got back up. His instincts was he took couple steps back, threw a couple of punches and took the first guy down. And had it been the two of them, yeah, he would have won. But the rest of them, and now granted, it was two of us, and again, it was somewhere between 5 and 7 guys, right? They were playing soccer with his head. He was out. He was in the hospital afterwards. So understanding that you have to stack them, you have to stay on your feet, and so you can see any incoming attack, and then you have to be aggressive still. And I've been in a situation where it was three of us and it was 8 of them, and we knew this because there was two full taxes of people. And luckily for me, the two people that were with me were also fighters. So by being aggressive, all three of us, not all of them would come at once, because not all of them were willing to fight. A couple of them were more aggressive, and a couple of them were like looking for an opportunity to sucker punch. Basically, they weren't willing to confront violence straight on. So to be able to show that, hey, you're getting too close, I'm still fighting. I'm moving. I'm trying to move away from you guys, but if you get too close, I'm gonna strike. Like, there's many animals in the animal kingdom that are great examples of that, where you get too close, they will strike, but they will try to retreat as much as they can.
Quick story. I was jumped in high school. I also have a road rage incident I forgot to mention. But in high school, we were at a basketball game, and some kids were throwing stuff at us. We were at the bottom of the benches, and they were up top. And all my team kept taking it and taking it. And I turned around and go, "What the fuck, man? Like, what are you doing?" So it was one kid. He was a short kid. And he's like, "What? What?" And then all of a sudden, 20 other people got up after him, like, "Oh, shit." So I sat down because I was outnumbered. We had a basketball team of like 7 of us. It was like, because it was their school. So as I was going home, I had to find a bus. So I'm walking down this main street, and One of them just start. I'm like, they're Joe, they're coming. So the rest of it, there's like four of us. They all spread. I'm like, who's coming? And at the time, like, I was like, what's going on? I'm like, come on. One of them caught up and caught me, like held on to me. I'm like, let go, man. What's going on here? He's like, what the hell, man? What were you doing in there? And he just held me. And all of a sudden, in come 20, like, that's probably like 15 of them. They come up to me. All of a sudden, I'm circled. One guy's showing me a crowbar, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm done. And I think there's one of my basketball teammates that stood there. All I remember, man, is that it just happened fast. They all jumped me at once, and they were like kids. They were like little high school kids. They were punching me like this. I don't even know if I got the bar. I managed to slip out. It happened so fast. I called the cops. They were all scattered. But what I'm saying is that it just happened so fast that like I didn't even have a chance to think. I just see a crowbar group, and then boom, they just like jumped on me. I had no chance. It's like 15 of them.
And
But I came out unscathed. It was a miracle. I could have died that night, literally.
yeah, and that's it, right? Like it happens so fast. Like you don't have time to run. You don't even have time to run. And that's what people, because
No,
that's also things like, oh, just run, run. Running is great if you can, but it takes three things for that. One, can you run? Are you in a confined space? Are you inside? Right? Can you? Is there only one door? Are they between you and that door? Two, are you faster than them? Right? We always say like, yeah, if your name is Usain Bolt, sure, run. But if they're fast, and then and three is with running is it even, do you have time to make that decision? Like you said, like they grabbed you before you even realizing what was going on, and that's that
yeah.
escalation where, okay, what'd you do now? Did you punch that guy and then
I
run?
should have
Are you
punched that
faster?
first guy. I should have punched that first guy and ran. I should have punched the first guy and ran. I would have been fine, but I didn't. I just
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe, but were you faster than the other 15 guys?
probably not. Who knows?
And especially as men, and again watching the how psychology works, right? When someone starts chasing, it becomes that Lord of the Flies, where it's like the animalistic thing. That's usually when they catch up, is when more violence happens, to the point where, like, that's when you hear about those sad stories where a group of kids jump someone and end up killing him.
I want to add another story to the road rage when we were talking about it. I almost died again. So my cousin, he was about 20. I was young back. That must have been 14 or something. He was a martial artist. That's the guy taking the Okinawa. So he was a little overconfident about himself, right? He took us some Okinawa, did some nunchucks, had some swords in his room. I thought he was a ninja, but we were in the little Honda Prelude. It's winter time. It's in Northeast. It's cold. And I don't know where we were going to, but we were driving. All of a sudden there's Ford Crown Victoria comes up, and I don't know, we kind of, it was like a side street. It was very quiet, industrial area. I don't know how we got there. It's one of those things. It was so long ago. I was a young kid. I was taking some taekwondo, and then we just kind of like intersected with these guys. They cut us off. So my cousin in his confidence honked. He starts, "What the fuck?" Whatever. And then we started going, and all of a sudden this thing turns around us and starts chasing. It's a Crown Victoria. It was a lady and her kid, and these two guys at the front. Actually, no. Before the assault came out, as we honked, the one guy gets out. He's this biker dude, jeans, long punk hair, gets out, kicks the side of the Prelude, and it was snowy, so he was driving. The Prelude kind of shifts, like he kicked it with all his might. Well, oh shit, just drive, right? Dented the car. So we're driving, and now we're in this chase. He's like, can you get back and get the plate? And cell phones weren't big. We didn't even have a cell phone back then, right? So these guys are on hot pursuit to kill us. So we drove to the police station. We lost them. I ended up getting the plate. We ran the plate to them and said, okay, these people were chasing us. There's a Crown Victoria, whatever. Here's the plate. Like, oh my God, these guys literally just got out of jail. They were going to kill you if they got you. And I was 14. Like, who am I going to fight, right? I guess these guys must have been in their 30s. They've been, they were tough biker dudes, right? It was nuts, man. But what I'm saying is, like, that road rage incident, just honking the horn, the guy got out and kicked our car. Like, he was ready to go. And we could
Yeah.
have died that day. We could have died that day. That's what the police said. You could have died today because if you're not driven here. Simple. So it
Yeah.
is scary, man. It's scary out there. You got to be careful.
It's not worth it. And it's easier sometimes said than done. Uh, it happens, things happen, and trying to think about, like, I know I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, just being calmer as a person. Meditation is great for that, ice baths are great for that,
Yeah.
and just being in a good place, right? Like when you have people that act like assholes in traffic, it's helped me a lot with going, can you imagine, like, that's how you get your outlet, is by
Yeah.
being an asshole in traffic, like not letting me in. Because I'm always the guy that let people in. I forgive, like I people who like they apologize. Yeah, don't worry about it. But like when you get those people that like they will speed up not to let you in or slow down not to let you in, and then for me, it used to be like, "Are you serious?" And then uh, when I was a lot younger, that's why it's important to learn to control our emotions. Where you go, really, like this is how you get your outlet. Like what is going on in your life? That must be, and that helps me to the point where you feel sorry for them. And right, it's the
Yes.
same people. There's the same people that are on social media just hating and trolling, right? Like that's your outlet. Like go ahead, like
I
let me
and
be
I'm
your victim for a minute.
I'm
That's
cooling
okay.
my temperature too, because I was walking in the mall. We were in the mall parking lot. This is like yesterday, literally, or 2 days ago. And I have a 6-year-old and a four, and my wife is walking, right?
Me
And
too.
we're
Yes.
walking in, and we're just walking, like as you know, there's the main curb and there's a door to get into the mall. And this car just peels out, like, and just like goes off to the side, goes around us. He must have been going like, I don't know, 40 miles an hour, 50, just shoo. And then he pulls up and stops there at the other door. So I'm like to my wife, I'm like, I want to go smash him. I want to go smash him. I want to go smash him. He almost hit us. Like we were just walking normally. Like we are just like, he's supposed to stop, but he couldn't wait 2 seconds. And then so I took a deep breath and I'm like, no, just walk in. Cause this could really, I'm like, should I go smash this? I don't care who it was. He almost ran over my family. What do I do?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, maybe he's going through something, whatever. But like, I almost lost it, dude. Like, but I had to take everything out of my control to say, hey man, just cool down, relax. And that's what I do with road rage. I just like maybe that guy's going and there's like inflation and people are tight for money, they're going through problems. And not, I'm grateful that I'm doing well. I'm successful and stuff like that. So I'm very blessed. So why would I bring myself down to go there? I
Yeah.
could have got my hands dirty and I would have just, but why? Just walk in, let's move on. No one was hurt. And that was it. And I've been so mature. Maybe 10 years ago I would have went to that car. I don't know. I didn't have kids 10 years ago, but who knows, right? But just you got to be cool. You got to be cool.
Yeah, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old as well, and that's primal, right? Like someone threatening your family, and this is where I struggle a little bit. Some of it is like, okay, make it water off your back, keep walking, but at the same time, that person should learn. But if you come at them violently or aggressively, then they're not gonna learn, right? Like a door can only open inwards. So
Yes.
I would potentially go up and go like, hey, that was really close to my kid. Like that scared my wife and kids and me. Would you mind just because when you plead to people's, uh, their basically their morals, right, or ethics, and
Yeah.
go, mind like there's a lot of kids here and some of them run out. Like, would you mind like slowing it down in the area? People respond much better. If you truly want to make a difference, that's how to do it. Are they gonna listen? They might answer like, "Ah, fuck you," and then like, fuck me, fuck you, whatever, and then you walk
Yeah.
off. And at least you gave it a try. And for the most part, I feel like, not always, but over the years, I've had a few successes. I call them wins. When you get the person to recognize that what they did. I had a guy who swore at me in front of my kid, and I said to him, I'm like, man, do you have to do that in front of my kid? Like, really?
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was older, you know. I would, if I wanted to fight him, of course I would have beat him up, but like it wasn't about that. And it took him like maybe 60 seconds, a minute or two, and then he came up and he's like, "Hey man, I just wanted to apologize." And I'm like, you know what? That's what I wanted, right? That's all I wanted. A much better outcome. So it is good. I know it can be hard with emotions and so on, but it
No,
is
you're
important to
absolutely, like you
control them.
said, hard with emotions, exactly. But like what you said there, they're gonna react better if I walked up like, "Hey, man, that wasn't very smart." But I was not in the mood to have that type of conversation.
No,
"Hey, sir,
no,
excuse me, can you roll your window down, sir? Yeah, that was inappropriate. I'd rather you never hit the gas near my." No, I was ready to smash, so I
yeah,
just
that's
completely
the
walked
problem.
away. I was, but you're
I'm
absolutely
walking
right.
away.
What's
I'm
that?
walking away, not for my sake, for your sake.
Yeah, it's one of those I didn't want to talk to him at that point. But you're absolutely right. Yes, he would probably respond better if I said, "Hey, man, just think twice. There's kids here." And maybe if he was closer, he must have been at least 50 to 100 feet away at that point. I wasn't going to walk all the way. But yeah, it was a crazy scenario. Last thing I want to talk about again. kind of we talked about Krav Maga versus MMA. You kind of explained this already, but let's have it out one more time here. So I ran this by Benil Dariush. I ran it by Terrence McKinney, top UFC fighters. I ran it by Matt. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, ex MMA fighter. He's big into fighting as well. He's got a big Instagram page as well, Matt Arreo. But I wanted to ask you. So we're on the street. Three highly trained Israeli military, hardened, like they're war torn, hardened. They've been in, they've had a bunch of tours, they've fought, they've killed, and they're ready to go. They're in shape now. They've done some light kickboxing. They don't train 8 hours a day like MMA guys, against top three in the same weight class. Let's say they're 170 each. 170, three guys at 170, three guys at 170. They got to fight to the finish. MMA guys, fully trained, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts versus these war-torn Krav Maga guys. I don't have to explain Krav Maga, eye gouging, all that stuff. They go at it. Now, one thing you did make a good point. These MMA guys, as tough as they are kind of trained subconsciously that there's a ref there, that this fight's going to stop. It's going to be game. Like, I have a backup plan. It's going to go 5 minutes and I'm done. These other guys probably know. They're like ready to go fight to the finish and to the absolute unaliving type situation. 3-on-3. Can you walk me through who wins this fight? I'm ready. I got my popcorn out. Who wins? Tough call.
Top MMA, like we're talking top UFC fighters?
Yeah, let's call him 170. Yeah, top UFC, former champs. Let's say Khabib, GSP, and I don't know, like anyone, Anderson Silva in their prime. Khabib, and GSP, Anderson Silva in their prime against the most war-torn. Let's not underestimate these Krav Maga guys. They've been to war. They've killed. They've actually killed, like throat choking, ruthless. They're ready to like roar. Who wins in a fight? I mean, let's not discount the Krav Maga guys. They're ready to kill. Who wins?
Yeah, chanceless. The Krav Maga, the Krav Maga guys are absolutely chanceless. They won't even last 2 minutes.
Why is that? Why are we sleeping on the Krav Maga guys?
But think about it. So now reverse it. Put some gun. Now, granted, I know Anderson is great at paintballing, but but the rest of them, you put guns in their hands and it's reversed. It won't even take 1 minute. They won't even see it coming. They will get murdered and slaughtered with guns, because think about, like, in MMA it's mainly it's made up of four main sports, right? Jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, and kickboxing.
Yeah,
that's what they spend 3 to 4 hours a day at.
Yeah.
Soldier is, especially in today's day and age, has very little close quarter combat training because they have very little close quarter combat fighting. They need to be good at their weapons. They need to be good at strategy of entering areas, of how to deal with tanks, anti-tanks, whatever they specialize in. They spend so little time on that they won't stand a chance. And they would, a good soldier, unless you, I tell you what, a good soldier that has done a minimal amount of martial arts training will be like, yeah, that's true. Unless they have too much of an ego. But it's just so different. And I tell people that all the time as well. Like, I do Krav Maga. My goal is to make sure that Krav Maga gets the respect that it deserves. Because there's a lot of really crappy MMA coaches out there, unfortunately. You don't have to be a professional fighter to be a great Krav Maga instructor, but you need to have at least been in one fight in your life, so understand that stress. And my coaches, systems, for example, the Krav Maga coaches, I tell them all the time, you don't have to be a champion or anything, but you have to be able to walk on any mat, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, and earn your respect. And then remember what it's for. So one-on-one scenario, the MMA fighters, because that's what they do, and it's a lot of times it's like you said, eye gouging and headbutts and biting. Yeah, there are things to take into consideration. However, we have to remember that the MMA fighter can also eye gouge and bite and headbutt.
That's what they said. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What the MMA fighter might not be ready for, or will not be ready for, is the knife that's in the boot of the soldier, for example, or to the side. And that's what's really important when we enter close, like jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. But as a police officer, when I work with law enforcement, for example, it's really important that they understand that, yes, you cannot do jiu-jitsu. You can do jiu-jitsu, but you can't do jiu-jitsu as a competitive jiu-jitsu player. You have to be aware of where's your gun in relation to the perpetrator, because most officers are shot by their own gun. And you have to watch out for potential sharp objects or even a gun on them too, right? So you can't be that close necessarily, or you have to be aware of their hands. So it's a completely different game. It's a completely different strategy. It's like,
Yeah.
what's his name? I was gonna say is the top tennis player right now. I don't know, Federer,
Novak,
right?
Novak,
Federer,
Novak.
Novak.
Yeah.
Okay. Novak going in and playing ping pong. Is he going to do better than most people? Of
No.
course he is.
Yeah.
Because he's got that hand coordination, but can he compete with the top? Here's a
No.
great example for anyone that does martial arts. Anyone that didn't. When Mayweather fought McGregor, a lot of people coming to me, they wanted to bet on the fight.
Yeah.
McGregor's going to win, right? I'm like, McGregor's chanceless. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, no, he has no, but he punches really hard. I'm like, you don't think Oscar De La Hoya punches hard? You don't think
Yeah.
Manny Pacquiao punches hard? So it's a different sport. It's a different range. It's a different rhythm. It's a different timing. Did McGregor do great? Yes, but he was chanceless. He always was chanceless. So that's a great example of going small changes. And his greatest, had it been a fight, a street fight, McGregor would have murdered Mayweather.
Yeah.
But because the rules, according to that sport, McGregor never stood a chance.
But remember,
So
these MMA guys are on the street. But again, it would be like GSP maybe taking down one of these guys, the other guy trying to get his eye, but GSP's already gone for his eyes. Or like, like, yeah, your MMA would definitely win. They have to.
and it's very hard to the whole eye gouging thing. It's very hard to eye gouge someone when you're being suplexed, for example. It's
That's
very
true.
hard to even, and it's very hard to. This is the best thing when people go eye gouging. Like, look at the size of an eye, right? And then you're
Yeah.
trying to get in there with your fingers, unless you're really, really close. Look at, again, back to Mayweather or Anderson Silva, who have some of the highest hitting percentages in the world. They're in, the 50s, 60s. That means that almost every other strike they will miss. And now you've never been in a fight. You're under high stress. You think your coordination and your precision is going to be that high? Like, again, get the fuck
Even
out of here.
even biting, trying to if GSP is doing a double leg takedown, you're going down. You're not gonna have time to go bite him. Like it's just
You won't even stand. You won't even see the takedown coming because
Yeah.
your eyes have been trained to look for the pattern recognition in what's happening at the moment. It's like same thing as like if you were to be a goalkeeper. If I put you in the goal for LA Kings and you never seen a puck flying at you, you got protection at 120 miles an hour. You see, I don't know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
fast the puck goes, but
About that.
80,
Yeah.
90 miles an hour. But you're not going to be so tough. And so it's like it's the Donny Kruger effect. The people think we've seen it, more and more over the last few years, where all of a sudden everyone's an expert at everything, international politics,
Yeah.
uh, science, and so on. So just like understanding that if you have never been in a fight, you have no right to speak on the topic. And that's usually where, when it comes to the social media, where I go when someone's like telling me things. And if it's a martial artist or if they have questions or concerns, I'm happy. But most of the time, it's people coming and telling me what it is and how it should be, right? And I'm like, hang on, I'm so, how many fights do you have? Oh, I'm not, but I have 5 black belts in ding dong do and
Yeah.
this, right? And I'm like, cool. So you have no experience. You have no right to speak to me, and I'm not going to go into a surgery with a doctor and start telling him what to do. Why? Because I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend to know. And but again, back to the whole thing where men, especially men, think they know how to fight without having any experience.
Let's talk one more thing here. Blood. Did you grew up in the '80s? I'm sure. So have you watched Bloodsport, one of the most famous martial arts movies,
Of
right?
course,
Okay,
yeah.
Van Damme. You saw in Kickboxers, right? Where he does the splits and then he trains with the blindfold on, and then the sensei hits him and he catches the hand, and then he's got the death touch where he breaks the bottom brick, and he's got, Tanaka Spirit or whoever it is Shidoshi's training him. How practical is his training? Because I want to put up some screenshots here of him. I want to do a short of this. Van Damme, and obviously if he knew jujitsu, he'd be tough. Frank Dukes, right? And I don't know the whole Frank Duke story, but I heard he was like a fraudster, fake guy. But anyway, Van
He's
Damme, and
he's a fraud. Yeah,
he was a fakester, right? Frank Dukes, he was a real guy, but he was not on the level that Van Damme was in Bloodsport, right? I don't think he was. But
he was nothing. There was no bloods, but there was no kumite. Everything was made up. He was
it
a
was all made
complete
up.
fraud, all made up.
Oh, okay.
He's a compulsive liar.
Okay, but the training, I want to see how practical the training was. Like if you trained me like Shidoshi trained Frank Dukes with the blindfold and the splits and the kicking of the tree. That was kickboxer, but kicking the tree where you destroy your shins and you just get beat. Is that really practical though? Is it really?
No, well, I've got to finally do one myself in Thailand. No, in Costa Rica. Banana trees, and you see the Thais do a lot as well. It's not that bad. You can kick through a tree. Conditioning your shins, yes, but you got to
Yeah.
do it smart. You can't go too hard. You don't start there. There's so I've done it, but there's also several Boer cow, kick the banana tree. It depends on the type of tree. Like, don't go out there kicking oak trees and thinking that it's banana tree.
Redwood trees in
Yeah,
California.
but being flexible is an advantage, absolutely. But if you don't know how to create force, then it doesn't matter how flexible it is. Many yogis are very flexible that would get slaughtered in a fight, right? Most of them, unfortunately. Two, uh, training blindfolded.
Hold on, hold. Let me get ready here. So this is like, can we do this here?
Yeah, there we
So
go.
a
Like
friend
that.
like this.
For jujitsu, I
Yeah.
actually like it because I talk about this a lot. You can't, you really know something when you can feel it. Like, and that's what jujitsu. You feel what direction they go. Wrestling as well. Same in boxing, kickboxing too. Like, I feel your rhythm. I feel how you're moving, and that's gonna help me create the openings. The opening isn't there right now, but because I know how you're gonna move, I'm creating the opening. So the blindfold, this advantages with it for self-defense. For Krav Maga, we turn off the lights sometimes so people get to train in the dark, because that could be reality, right? You can be attacked at a nightclub or late at night, so that can be an advantage. The Here's the thing: a lot of like those traditional kung fu, especially, I make a lot of fun on kung fu, but I make fun of traditional martial arts, but I also respect we are where we are today because of
Yeah.
traditional martial arts. But we also have to recognize that things evolve and things get better. We can't get stuck in the past. So some of the training is great in addition to like additional training on a light day. You want to work on your reflex, absolutely, but the problem with the most traditional martial arts is that they spend so much time on the little details, which is not worth it. Not focusing on the meat and potatoes, the how to punch hard, how to block a punch, how to see a punch coming at you, and what matters in a fight. Any martial arts that doesn't incorporate sparring, unfortunately, will be very limited in its functionality.
That sucks 'cause I was hoping to watch Karate Kid and train my kids to do chores around the house, wax on, wax off, and paint the fence. Because those are some practical moves. Back in the day, I could see how that was, like, really interesting, the wax on and wax off stuff, but now it's just a joke. Like, I mean, you just take double leg takedown and ground and pound on that guy, it doesn't matter how many waxes he does.
Exactly. But there's movements, then that's like katas that you said before. Katas, if you want to learn how to defend yourself, katas, as you know, hold zero, functionality. But to learn how to focus and how to like shadow
Breathe.
boxing is a form of yeah, and breathing and staying focused and focus on details. So shadow boxing is a form of kata. When self hypnosis or visualization is a form of kata, right? Is to recognize patterns and creating patterns, neurological pathways in your brain, so that your body can perform the way you envision it too.
Yeah, katas were good for, like, it gave me intensity, it gave me breathing, and it built strong legs because I used to do the horse stance, so it made my legs really strong growing up as a foundation. It was really good with the horse stance and stuff like that, and blocking and just, movements and stuff, so it was good, but it's just not practical for a real fight situation, that's all.
No, so
So yeah, Marcus, I appreciate you, man. This was a great. I can sit here and talk fighting all day, man. I just, we gotta cap it at some
we'll do
point.
it another time.
We got yeah, we'll get you back on when the show gets even bigger and bigger, man. I gotta keep talking about the fights because I always with my wife, I drive her absolutely nuts. People like you, I could just bug you all the time, but I always bug the crap out of her, man. I'm watching a show, or I talk about her brother, or I talk about our cousin. Who would win the fight? My brother-in-law, or your cousin. And I just say, why are we talking about this? Like, I
Your
always give her like,
wife is cool.
what's that?
That's cool.
Yeah, I always think she hates it. Like, and so I'm like, now I'm like, when I'm watching a show, I'm like, who would win a fight? Me or we're walking down the street, who would win a fight? Me or that? She's like, that guy. That guy would beat you. I've had enough of this. That guy. And I'm like, that guy's traded a day in his life. How he can't beat me up? And she's like, no, he could beat you. Stop. I'm not done. So that's why I'm having people like you to fill my needs of like who would win the fight. Cause I love talking about fighting and I need to feel that adrenaline, rush that I get with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it is, it's I have a I have I'm working very hard on trying to make this world a better place, and
Yeah.
being able to teach people how to defend themselves, and but also decrease violence. And yeah, I'll be happy to come back some other time. I do a lot of stuff, entrepreneurship, and I have a non-profit. I wrote a book, and so anything in the future that your questions about, I'd be happy to come on as well. And I liked your questions. I might even make some videos on those scenarios that you spoke about before to show people
Yeah, I'll mash up the reels and I'll send them to you. I'll mash up the reels with you talking because that's another thing. I don't know how much talking you do on your social, but there's a lot of people that I'm getting on. I had this guy on. He was a boxer. He's an overweight boxer. He went viral, but nobody heard him talk, right? They just heard the story. Or I had this girl that slept with 300 people in a year, Annie Knight. She went viral, but she wasn't talking that much. Well, maybe she didn't have much time talking. She was busy doing other stuff. But what I'm saying is, like, I just had all these people on that just don't talk. I mean, I know you do more, but a lot of people just don't talk, and then now they express their voice in different ways. So I'm glad that I'm kind of being a voice for you guys, and you guys can get the video and they hear more of you guys on your social media platforms, which is fun too, because you guys have all unique personalities with great, and I want to get more voices out to the masses, and including my audience too, because I have a lot of males in the US that watch football. They like adrenaline stuff. So you'd be right up their alley. So I can, more people familiar with you that aren't. So which is
thank
good
you,
too.
Joe.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, mate.
I'm excited, man. I love talking to people. This is my passion. So thank you for coming on. Marcus Kowal on socials, right? And we've linked all your content below. What's the name of the book as well? Name of your book?
Life is a moment.
Life is a Moment.
Yes, and
Where
it's
can I get that? Anywhere like Amazon?
on Amazon. Yeah, it was actually an Amazon bestseller. And Life is a Moment, which spells out, or Liam, Liam, which was my firstborn son's name,
Beautiful. Amazing.
and who's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Oh, I didn't know
Uh,
that. Sorry.
I know that's actually the shirt I'm wearing here. The green frog on there is that's why I'm fighting drunk driving so much with our non-profit. He was killed by a drunk driver.
Wow, I didn't know. How old?
He was 15 months.
Oh,
He-
wow, I'm sorry to
he-
hear that. I didn't know
Thank
that at
you.
all.
I know. It's that's why I fight. It's the hardest fight. It's funny you mentioned my TikTok. I made a post yesterday, specifically on that, where that's fighting in the ring in the cage is nothing to fight the heartbreak of the grief of losing a child. So yeah, like I said, I have a lot of different topics we can talk about, and
Yeah,
it's
we'll bring
something.
you on. We'll bring you on and get more deep with that another time for sure. Again, sorry to hear that. I didn't know. Like I lost a father in 2015, and that's tragic. I can't even imagine what you're going through. But and I used my dad's death as like an inspiration and drive somehow. But yeah, it's
Exactly.
so I'm very sorry. I mean, there's no words really. That caught me off guard. So
Yeah, no, and it's horrendous, and but finding your way back, and that's something that I've done. And Liam has two younger siblings, 4 and 6 years old, same as yours, Nico and Luna, and making sure he's part of everything that we do, and his legacy as far as with making sure that lives are safe because of him. And when it comes to drunk driving, so we're fighting that very hard. It's called liamslife.org is the website for the nonprofit. And I know we are going to save many lives. We already have, and we'll continue to do so. And just turning the most horrendous pain there is to known to man to something that's at least something positive and that will help others.
yeah, I'm very, very sad to hear that. I'll put that link. Send me the link below, and I'll put it below here as well too. Thank you. Any way I can help, man. I don't know, anything I can do, I'll do that.
Thank you,
I'll,
Joe.
I'll
I
bring you back
appreciate
on
it.
as I continue to get bigger, and this thing's gonna take off. And we'll fund there as much as we can. Make a difference.
Thank
So
you, Joe.
thank you guys. We appreciate you guys, and make sure you guys subscribe, follow Marcus Kowal for amazing tips on how to, for martial arts and everything else. So I appreciate you, Marcus. It means a lot. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Likewise,
Take
Joe.
care.